Queen Anne, a dark chronicle of a tormented monarch. The shadowed beginnings. Born into a world of dynastic ambition and volatile politics, Anne Stuart entered a realm where the promise of power was inextricably linked to loss and suffering. As the daughter of King James II and a scion of the Stuart dynasty, her early life was steeped in the uncertainty of political intrigue and religious strife. The flickering candlelight of royal courts and the ever-present threat of rebellion cast long shadows over her formative years, hinting at the relentless darkness that would later define her reign. A crown marred by personal tragedy. Ascending to the throne in 1702, Queen Anne inherited not only the regal mantle but also the weight of personal and national grief. Her reign was overshadowed by the relentless sorrow of losing her children, each death a haunting reminder of her inability to secure the future of her bloodline. In a cruel twist of fate, her womb bore nothing but desolation, and every hope for a lasting legacy was gradually smothered by the specter of infertility and despair. The absence of an heir loomed like a dark curse over the palace, feeding rumors and political conspiracies in the dim corridors of power. The tortured reign. Queen Anne's time on the throne was defined by relentless turmoil. Her court, rife with treachery and backroom plotting, became a crucible of bitterness. Political factions battled not only for influence but for survival, in an environment where loyalty was as fleeting as the flicker of a dying flame. The bitter rivalry between the Tories and Whigs tore the fabric of her realm apart, each faction contributing to an atmosphere of suspicion and despair. The weight of governing a fractured nation, combined with her personal grief, rendered her increasingly isolated. A monarch encircled by sycophants and traitors alike, her every decision shadowed by the fear of impending ruin. A kingdom under siege. The external threats to her realm compounded the internal darkness that pervaded her reign. England, embroiled in the War of the Spanish Succession, fought battles that were as brutal as they were inconclusive. The cost of war was measured not only in the lives of soldiers, but in the collective spirit of a people who felt the cold hand of fate grip their future. The clamor of cannons and the bitter cries of the fallen echoed in the minds of the subjects, a grim reminder that the crown was as much a symbol of suffering as it was of authority. Queen Anne, with her haunted eyes and weary demeanor, became the living embodiment of a nation trapped in perpetual twilight. The lonely monarch. In the quiet of the palace, away from the tumult of political machinations and battlefield carnage, Queen Anne grappled with profound loneliness. Her personal relationships were marred by betrayal and disillusionment. The once promising bond with her husband, Prince George of Denmark, was constantly undermined by the unyielding demands of state and the encroaching gloom of her failing health. The loss of close confidants and the betrayal by those she trusted deepened her isolation, leaving her to confront the relentless march of time with a heart heavy with sorrow. The corridors of her royal residence, once filled with the promise of life and love, now resonated with the echoes of lost hope and the ghostly murmurs of regret. The final curtain. As the twilight of her life approached, the darkness that had defined Queen Anne's reign settled in like an unyielding shroud. The political and personal failures, compounded by the ceaseless torment of loss, culminated in a reign that was as tragic as it was inevitable. Her death in 1714 marked not just the end of a troubled era, but the conclusion of a life that had been in constant conflict with fate. In her final moments, the Queen, worn, isolated, and burdened by the failures of both heart and state, became a somber symbol of the ephemeral nature of power and the inescapable sorrow that accompanies a legacy built on the ruins of unfulfilled dreams. Epilogue. The enduring darkness. Queen Anne's story endures not merely as a historical account, but as a grim allegory of ambition, loss, and the relentless passage of time. Her life, fraught with sorrow and overshadowed by the specters of betrayal and despair, continues to haunt the annals of history. The dark tone of her reign serves as a stark reminder that even the most exalted crowns are not immune to the corrosive effects of grief and treachery. In every whispered legend and every somber recounting of her days, the melancholic truth remains. The pursuit of power often comes at an unbearable cost, and the echoes of lost hope reverberate long after the final chapter is written.